If you've ever been to a shooting range, you've probably just grabbed a box of factory ammo. And hey, it works. It's reliable, it goes bang. But for some people, for those who are chasing the absolute pinnacle of accuracy, good enough just doesn't cut it. So today, we're diving into the world of hand loading, where every single round is a handcrafted piece of art, tuned perfectly for one specific rifle.
So what's the big deal? Why would anyone spend hours in their garage meticulously building ammunition when you can just buy it off the shelf? Well, that's the question, isn't it? It's really the difference between an off-the-rack suit and a completely custom-tailored one. And that whole journey from mass-produced to bespoke starts with understanding the basic ingredients.
All right, so let's break down a cartridge. No matter what you're shooting, from a tiny little pistol round to a massive Magnum rifle cartridge, every single one is built from the same four fundamental components. Think of them as the four ingredients in a recipe for a perfect shot.
And here they are. It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. You've got the brass case. That's the container, the foundation, and it's the only part you can actually reuse. Then you have the primer, which is basically the spark plug. Next is the powder. That's the fuel, the stuff that creates all the energy. And finally, the bullet itself, the projectile that does all the work. Our job is to put these four parts together with incredible, almost microscopic precision.
Now here's something interesting. The journey of a hand-loaded round usually doesn't start with shiny new parts. Nope, it starts with a piece of brass that has already been fired. We're taking that used case and bringing it back to life, but we're making it even better than new. Why? Because now it has been perfectly fire-formed to the inside of your specific rifle chamber.
And getting that case ready is a journey in itself. It's really a four-step dance. First, you pop out the old, spent primer, that's decapping. Then you have to resize the brass to get it back into the right dimensions. After that, you trim it to the correct length, because believe it or not, firing and resizing actually makes the brass stretch. And finally, some folks anneal it to keep it from getting brittle.
Sizing is a huge step. You can full-length size it, which basically squeezes the entire case back to factory dimensions so it'll work in any rifle of that caliber. But for ultimate precision, a lot of reloaders only neck size. This just resizes the neck and leaves the body of the case perfectly molded to their chamber. That's the tailored suit difference we were talking about.
And if you want to see just how deep this rabbit hole goes, check this out. We're talking about something called a shoulder bump. This is where we push the shoulder of the case back by just 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch. That is less than the thickness of a human hair. But that tiny, tiny adjustment makes the difference between a round that chambers like butter and one that's too tight or too loose. After you fire and resize brass over and over again, it gets work-hardened, it gets tired and brittle, especially at the neck. Annealing is how we fix that. You use a torch or an induction heater to carefully soften that part of the case. It prevents cracks and means you can reload that same piece of brass way more times. It's just smart preventative maintenance for your components. Okay, our case is prepped. It's perfect. Now it's time for well, let's call it the exciting part. It's time to add the power, and this is where things get really serious. We are literally creating a controlled explosion, so this is where precision has to be matched with a deep respect for physics. Safety is everything here. So how much powder do you use? You don't guess. You use a reloading manual. It's your Bible. For any given bullet and powder, it gives you a safe range. It'll list a starting load, which is the minimum, and a maximum load. And the absolute #1 rule of reloading is simple. You never, ever start at the max. You always start low and methodically work your way up. This whole procedure is called working up a load. You'll load a small batch, maybe 5 rounds, at that starting charge. Then you'll load 5 more with just a tiny bit more powder, and so on in these small, precise steps. You're carefully climbing a ladder, and with each step up, you're looking for 2 things: signs of danger and the sweet spot of best accuracy. As you work your way up, your rifle will talk to you. I'm serious, you have to learn to listen to it. These are the warning signs that you're getting into unsafe pressure levels. A primer that's flattened out, a bolt that's suddenly hard to lift after firing, or weird shiny marks on the bottom of the case. Those are all red flags. Your rifle is telling you to stop and back off, and you absolutely have to listen. Okay, we've got a perfect case, we figured out a safe powder charge. The last step is to put it all together and seat the bullet. But, just like everything else in this process, exactly how deep we seat that bullet is a whole science in and of itself. Here's a little pro tip that really separates casual reloading from precision work. Most manuals list cartridge overall length, or COL, which is measured to the very tip of the bullet. The problem is, those little tips can be inconsistent. So what precision shooters do is measure to the bullet's curve, its ogive. We call that CBTO. It's a much more consistent point to measure from, and that means more consistent results downrange.
So why choose one bullet over another? Well, a huge factor is its ballistic coefficient, or BC. The easiest way to think about it is this. A high BC bullet is like a javelin. It just slices through the air. A low BC bullet is like a beach ball. The wind just pushes it all over the place. So for long-range shooting, a higher BC is king. The very last variable we can play with is called bullet jump. This is the tiny, tiny gap the bullet has to travel before it engages the rifling in the barrel. And by precisely controlling how deep we seat the bullet, we can change how long that jump is. Some rifles shoot best with a long jump, others like a really short one. Finding out what your rifle likes is a huge part of tuning for accuracy. So we did it. We've built our custom ammo. We've obsessed over every little variable we can control. Now it's time for the payoff. We head to the range and see if all that work actually mattered. This is where we collect the data that tells us if we got it right. And the most important tool for this job is the chronograph. It's basically a speedometer for your bullets. It sits out in front of your rifle and measures the exact velocity of every single shot in feet per second. Without this data, you're really just guessing. But you know, the average speed isn't actually what we care about most. What we're really chasing is consistency. And we measure that with a number called standard deviation, or SD. All it does is tell you how much your speed varies from shot to shot. A high SD means your velocities are all over the place. A low SD means every single bullet is leaving the barrel at almost the exact same speed. And this right here, this is the goal. This is what precision reloaders are chasing. Single-digit SD. That means your standard deviation is less than 10 feet per second. When you hit that number, you know you've created something special. You've eliminated almost all the variables and your ammo is performing with incredible consistency. And this really sums up the entire philosophy here. It's not just about making ammunition. It's about a systematic, scientific search for that one perfect recipe that unlocks a rifle's absolute maximum potential. And that recipe has a name. It's called the accuracy node. It's the holy grail. It's that one magical combination where the specific powder charge, the specific bullet seating depth, and all your components come together in perfect harmony, and your rifle starts printing these tiny, round, repeatable groups on paper. Finding that node is the entire point. You know, from resizing a case by the width of a human hair to measuring velocity down to a single foot per second, hand-loading is a discipline of details. It really proves that the perfect shot isn't just a moment of luck. It's the final result of 1,000 tiny steps, all done with absolute precision. So the only question left is, which of those steps will you master first?